Chapter 28, Part 2. If thou wilt not observe to do all the words of this law that are written in this book, that thou mayest fear this glorious and fearful name, the Lord thy God, then the Lord will make thy plagues wonderful, and the plagues of thy seed even great plagues, and of long continuance, and of sore sickness, and of long continuance. Moreover, he will bring upon thee all the diseases of Egypt, which thou wast afraid of, and they shall cleave unto thee. And every sickness and every plague which is not written in the book of this law, them will the Lord bring upon thee, until thou be destroyed. And ye shall be left few in number, whereas ye were as the stars of heaven for multitude, because thou wouldst not obey the voice of the Lord thy God. And it shall come to pass that as the Lord rejoiced over you to do you good and to multiply you, so the Lord will rejoice over you to destroy you, and to bring you to naught, and ye shall be plucked from off the land whither thou goest to possess it. And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. And among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest. But the Lord shall give thee there a trembling heart, and failing of eyes, and sorrow of mind, and thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shalt not have assurance of thy life. In the morning thou shalt say, Would God it were even, and at even thou shalt say, Would God it were morning, for the fear of thine heart wherewith thou shalt fear, and for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. Chapter 28 here is, on one side, one of the most horrific of all the chapters to read, and at the same time can be one of the most inspiring if you understand what's involved and what the balances are. You need to understand that we're talking about something here that is a little different than what you might think. We're talking about here, well, basically we'll go back, cover a little bit of background, and then come back up. This is very much similar to Leviticus chapter 26, where the Lord outlines all the punishments that will come if the nation of Israel actually deliberately turns away from worshiping Him, worshiping false gods, all kinds of other things, deliberately does this. And so basically, the first 14 verses of this chapter are the promises for being obedient, for loving God with being sincere, doing all the things that they should do. And the verses 15 to 68 are all the things that are going to happen to the nation of Israel if they wholly turn away from worshiping God as they should. Now there's a difference here between the nation of Israel and all the citizens of Israel. And Heavenly Father makes a bit of a difference, but not in this chapter, but in the judgments that He makes, between the righteous individuals who live in the nation of Israel and the people who are the presiding officers of the nation of Israel, who are responsible for the calamities, many of them, that happen to the nation of Israel. And if you happen to be a normal, humble citizen in a country, and some judgment of God is going to happen to that country, it's going to be nothing short of a miracle if you escape. And we know that that doesn't happen most of the time. We know that the innocent suffer with the wicked. But Heavenly Father understands that our life is eternal, and that although this portion, the earth part of our life, will end, the eternal part will pick up again from it was before we got here. We have a period here of learning to do the things we need to do and putting our lives in order, and then going back and living with Heavenly Father if we're entitled to, because we made wise and good choices here. And there were many good, wise, wonderful, intelligent, courteous, loving people among the Hebrew people. The problem was they tended to have leaders who were uninspired, unimaginative, many of them, Some of them were really wonderful, but many of them brought problems upon the nation because of their unrighteousness, the things they were willing to tolerate, etc., etc. And so the Lord's letting them know here, letting everybody know what is coming down the road. Now, the interesting thing is that the instances of cannibalism, which is the thing that seems to attract the most ghastly attention in this chapter, occurred twice. One was the siege by the Babylonians of Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar, and it was recorded that there was cannibalism then. But the almost perfectly precise, and we know we don't have it exactly. We know that there are parts of this that just aren't there. But we know that there are parts of this that are absolutely astoundingly accurate as far as the prophecy is concerned, and this is thousands of years before it happened. Okay? So, the siege of Jerusalem by the Romans in almost 40 years after the death of Christ perfectly parallels this prophecy. First, it says, we're going to start a look at verse 47, and we'll go through the verses. It'll be pretty obvious what we're talking about. The nation will come from afar. It's pretty much impossible to get much further away from Palestine than Rome during that period of time. That was the known world. And they would be the troops would be as swift as an eagle. The eagle was on the Roman standard. And the Roman troops were known to be able to march 100 miles in a day and fight at the end of it. And for a group of 10,000 men to be able to march 100 miles a day was one of the reasons why the Romans were able to conquer the known world at the time. There would be a tongue that they wouldn't understand. Latin and Hebrew are totally different. The Hebrews might have understood some of the Babylonian, but they wouldn't have understood a word of what the Romans were saying. The language is totally different. There would be a nation that would not show favor. The Romans expected absolute submission. If you absolutely submitted, they would tolerate you. They could have freedom of religion, whatever else, but absolute submission was it. And if you didn't submit, merciless. Absolutely merciless. And it was the destruction that terrified the other people that made it much more likely the other people would surrender. And so that's what they did. The Roman generals built a siege wall, siege barrier all around the city of Jerusalem very early on in the siege. Nobody could get in, no food could get in, nobody could get out, there was no escape. And very early on there were recorded instances of cannibalism. The question is really, what can we learn from this horror that's positive? And the point is very simply this, I think. We need to understand that there were many righteous people who lived in Israel for the thousands of years before the very worst events of this came to pass, and that they were looked after and blessed by Heavenly Father in their day-to-day lives and for their lives throughout eternity. They would not be punished because of the ignorance of their leaders or the ultimate failure of their nation. Secondly, we need to understand that Heavenly Father, that these people as individuals, as families, whatever, had total freedom to choose everything that they could do, wanted to do for thousands of years. They had the right to make their own decisions, and they chose according to their desires. As such, they contributed either to the well-being or the demise of the country in which they lived. The same thing happens to us. We have the right to make choices that will affect our well-being throughout eternity and the well-being of our nation throughout eternity, throughout its lifetime. And, last but not least, we have a God who can see the possibilities for thousands of years in the future, and also for tomorrow and the day after and next year and 5 years and 10 years and 20 years down the road. If we want to have that kind of inspiration, that kind of knowledge, that kind of understanding, that kind of power, that kind of support on our side, we know what we have to do. We have to live worthy of receiving it. And the choices are clear. We know the commandments. We know what to do. We just have to live them. And we will have that benefit every day of our lives.